Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chelsea Perspective. Today, we're going to talk about Chelsea Football Club potential summer signings, especially from the perspective of attacking talents that can help the club solve goal scoring issues. We will talk about the price tag attached to each of the players that the club is rumored to be interested in, and also compare the price tags to the cheaper alternatives that are available that can equally get the job done for the club. And today, already in the studio, I have Taran and I also have Ankit. At the end of the stream, I will make sure to leave their information on how you can find them on wherever social media platforms that they have a presence on. So let me share the screen. It starts on some of the players that the club have signed, those that have done well, those that were record-breaking signings, but at the end of the day, they didn't perform as much as the club thought they did perform. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Okay. And please let me know if you can see the screen. All right, can we see it?
Yeah.
Great. Yes. So as you can see, we have Didier Drogba. And for Drogba, he was signed just for £24 million. He played 381 games. That is after his first stay at the club, plus his second coming out of the club. Everything is there. And then he scored a total of 164 goals. And that is great. And we all know that he is a legend. And the second person is Diego Costa. Costa was signed just for 32 million from Atletico Madrid. He played 120 games for the club and he scored 59 goals, which is not a bad return at all. So the next person we have is Alvaro Morata. He was signed for 70 million and he was record signing at that time at the club, right? For 70 million, he played 72 games and he also scored 24 goals. Also, we have Andrea Shashenko. He was signed for £30.8 million. In total, he played 77 games for the club and he scored 22 goals. And before he came to Chelsea, everybody here knows how prolific he was for AC Milan. He was firing on all cylinders. I think he won the Ballon d'Or, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
And he won the Champions League with them too. Great. And we also have Fernando Torres. He was signed for £50 million. He played 172 games for the club, scored 45 goals. So if we look at it, all the names, all the individuals that will share their stats on the screen. And also, if you look at Didier Drogba and Diego Costa, combined signing fee should be around £56 million. Whereas Alvaro Morata and Fernando Torres alone should be around 150 or 130 at least, plus that of Shevchenko. And the three of them, Fernando Torres, Alvaro Morata, and Andrea Shashenko, are all record signings. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Morata, I believe, was, and when Schaffchenko came in, I'm pretty sure he was as well. When Drogba came in, I'm sure he was, but I don't think Torres was I think he might have been as well. You're right. I think Torres.
Yeah, for 15 million then he was the club's record signing. After who was signed after Michael Essien? Who broke Michael Essien's record? I think it was probably Andrea Shashenko. But Torres was definitely a record breaking signing. So now if we compare the starts of those players, the cheaper signings there, the cheaper of the signings, which is Diego Costa and also Didier Drogba, they did really, really well. And in most cases, you can say actually they exceeded expectations, whereas the record-breaking signings did not even get close to where the club thought they'd be. So, Taran, I want to get your opinion on that. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, when you sign for a price tag, I'm sure it's a lot of pressure, especially when you're moving from a new country like Morata. He moved from I think it was Real Madrid. He went on loan to Juventus and came back. Then he left for 70 million. If you're coming and you're maybe not as experienced as you would like to be for 70 million, we've seen it with Havertz at the start of the season. We've seen it with Kepa. I think it's just natural that the fans are going to put more pressure on you automatically. You're going to put more pressure on yourself. It's just going to be, I think, a lot more. I say a lot more dangerous and a lot more risky than it really needs to be. If Morata came and he signed for how much I think he's probably worth, around £30 million, then it would have been, he didn't work out. Oh, well, we'll get a new striker in the future. With Drogba, I'm very surprised that he was signed for 24 million back in 2004. That is a crazy amount of money back then. It was incredibly expensive if you think about it. So back then, that might have been a similar price tag to Morata now. Do you get me? It might have been the inflation of the value of the market might have been there. But Drogba he was just a different kind of animal, in my opinion. His mentality was just score goals, win trophies, fight for the badge, don't fall on the floor easily, battle your way through games, carry the team, do everything you have to do to get the win. And that was Drogba's mentality. Fortunately, Fernando Torres, yes, he did a very good thing, but I don't think he had the same mentality. Morata, the first month or two, he was probably one of the best strikers in the league. And then it got to his head. He got a bit nervous. He lost confidence. As we've seen with Timo Werner now, it's just a lost confidence. And that's where he's dropped. With Diego Costa, I just thought he's in the same level as Drogba, in my opinion. The way he's built his mentality, his winning mentality, his hunger, his fight. He's like a lion. It's just, that's the way I see Diego Costa. And Timo Werner, hopefully in the future. And like this comment says from Tommy, Haaland is a player like Drogba and Costa, in my opinion. That looks like it could happen at the minute.
Yeah, interesting way to put it. And the surprising thing, usually these cheaper signings of the 5 players that we've looked at their stats on the screen, the big games, that's when they perform the most, during big games. Whereas the signings, the record-breaking signings, usually you find them wanting in big games. So that's usually surprising to me. And we'll come later in the show. We'll talk about why having the club. To me, that's my personal argument. Everybody in the panel and the fans also have the right to argue things from their own perspective. And my argument is, it doesn't look like the club has learned anything. You have scouts who can help the club find cheaper alternatives, who can equally get the job done, because there are lots of players scoring quite a lot of goals in their clubs, even with lesser chances created for the clubs that they're playing for. So, Ankit, I'm gonna come back to you, and I hope that do you want me to scroll through the stats again so that you're up to par with what we're talking about right now?
No, I think I did see the stats initially, and then I kind of went over. So yeah, guys, I might be going back and forth a little bit today.
Yes.
That's the connection today, so it's a little bad. So I think
No problem.
Darren kind of hit the nail on the head. Definitely, he summed it up very well for me. The way that Diego Costa and of course Didier Drogba was signed at the time, actually they were not cheap.
Okay, we were forewarned for the bad internet connection, so we are going to continue. So back to you, Tehran. The question I have for you right now is, because to me, my argument is it doesn't look like the club, they've learned from their past mistakes, because it has happened 3 times. And actually, there's a joke around the football world that Chelsea Football Club killed the careers of attackers, because they can mention great footballers who's been great for their previous clubs, but the moment they arrive at Chelsea, they start struggling. So is it a question that the club hasn't learned, or is it a question of just signing big names for the sake of making a statement? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think they were all manager-driven signings in the past. Morata was, I think Conte wanted Lukaku, and the board maybe couldn't sign him, and that was his second option. I don't think the board would ever spend 70 million on Morata by choice. Fernando Torres was signed in the Ancelotti days, I believe, or maybe just after. Definitely an Ancelotti signing. He looks like quick in the attack, good and all-round striker. Now we're seeing, because our club, it's not a club who keeps managers like Sir Alex Ferguson, like Arsene Wenger for 20, 30 years. It's a club who is built on a team and the board and the short term, in my opinion, for managers. So right now we're seeing Havertz come in, who was definitely not a Lampard signing. He was a board signing. Timo Werner, Lampard wanted Aguero. He wanted other strikers. He got Timo Werner. We've seen that Chilwell was definitely a signing. Thiago Silva was a player for the team. Edouard Mendy was probably for the team as well. We've seen, I think the board are learning from the errors. They're signing younger players for the future now. We're seeing players like Havertz, who I already mentioned, who's coming in, who's going to be hopefully good for us for the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion. And that's kind of how I kind of see this matter. But yeah, the board definitely made some huge mess ups in the past, and I think it would be very deluded if they didn't learn from it. Like Bakayoko, we've seen, who's going on loan again to Fiorentina. Danny Drinkwater, who's posting inappropriate pictures on his Instagram. We just see these random signings come in for the managers. I don't even know what it is anymore. And I just think now it's looking more likely, even though Haaland, I know this is an episode about cheaper alternatives, but Haaland will be a player for the next 5 to 10 years, even if he would be like 150 million, we could still earn back money from him. So yeah, I see our club's building for the future with preparing for a managerial sack right now. We're not really staying with manager signings anymore.
So your argument in that aspect is whenever the signing is the signing for the club, that's where we usually sign players who end up not measuring up to expectations at the club.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, like I said, Morata as well. He was definitely not a Conte signing. So yeah, that's kind of exactly hit the nail on the head there, Coachella.
Thank you. So, Ankit, over to you again if you're ready, and hopefully you'll find this time. But you don't have to worry about it. It happens to all of us,
Thanks for that. So yes, I did hear, offline on my phone while I was off for a couple of minutes. So yes. Sharon kind of, summed it up very well. In fact, like what I would like to add is see, at the time that Morata was signed, I know that he was probably a big money signing compared to what the market was, and probably what his ability was. But I genuinely believe that he wasn't managed that well. So he's I don't know if you know the kind of persona or the personality that Ziyech has, right? I feel that Morata comes with that kind of nature, who kind of wants to be like the main guy, and if he's not kind of loved by the manager and the team, he kind of just goes away. So that is the kind of mentality that he has. Unfortunately, did not work for him, because the time that he was missing goals, he just went from bad to worse. But at that time, like how Tuchel is kind of persisting with, say, Havertz and Werner, and we finally won the Champions League, and out of that, you never know what would have happened in Morata, because he was really not really ready for the big league yet. But you never know, if he had probably spent 6 more months, he would have changed. So what I'm trying to say at the end of the day is yes, these were big money signings, even Shevchenko for that matter, but they weren't given a lot of time. I know we are Chelsea, we cannot give so much time, but the fact that over the years we have played only one striker up front, has been like our, heel switch to speak, because the way that we are playing right now, I feel that getting a big name striker will probably be easier for the person to bed in compared to what it was, say, when Morata or Shevchenko were there.
So you all for going for the big name striker?
Yes, of course, not at the cost of having a disparity in the team, not say spending 150 million that we're going to speak, I'm sure, about. But definitely, someone who kind of is a big name striker, so to speak, is worth coming to Chelsea, because we are the champions of Europe.
So I understand. So my question for you right now, Ankit, is having looked at the case of Alvaro Morata, Andrea Shashenko, and also Fernando Torres, how are you? Can you say you're confident that what's his name? That Haaland, if we say, let's say we sign Haaland, and the price will most likely be something north of 100 million, definitely. Are you confident that he's going to perform? He will deliver? Because I see you're bringing you're saying pretty much what you're saying is that the previous signings, the previous record-breaking signings, the issue for them was that they weren't given enough time to succeed at the club. Did I get that right? So my question is, Haaland will most definitely be a record-breaking signing, and his fee will be something north of 100 million pounds. Are you confident that given that fee, that if it comes to Chelsea, that he will make it?
Yes, eventually he will make it for sure if he's given the time. And the way Tuchel is and the way the systems are, I feel that basically we can fit in Haaland and basically, play Haaland and Havertz up front. Like, again, I'm throwing it out there. Someone like a 3-5-2, or maybe even a 3-4-3 for that matter, with Havertz kind of, playing slightly on the right hand side. So I
Yes.
feel that when Torres, Morata, and Shevchenko were there, I think primarily under Mourinho and of course the managers which kind of preceded and followed, I feel that we always played like a single striker system. We never really were that flexible unless we were behind in games, right? So I feel that now the way that Tuchel is flexible in the systems during games, as well as basically he's having a preseason to come, he can maybe mold the team in such a manner so that we can play with two strikers. Because when Shevchenko was there, I really liked him. Like, I know that you showed the stat about 77 games. He didn't start out 77 games from what I remember, right? So he was also played on the right wing at times. I know the game against Tottenham, the cup game where he scored that blinder of a goal. He actually scored of a left foot on the right wing, if you remember, right? So such kind of things where getting a persistent run as a main striker wasn't there. With Haaland, he's a young guy after all. Yes, if Kane comes at a very high price, he will be expecting to start each and every game. I know Haaland is obviously the big name striker in the world, but even if he comes, I think he can probably play 2 out of every 3 games, and he's probably having a better environment for just getting acclimatized to the conditions in Chelsea. And anyway, we have Havertz and Werner with his second season will probably be expected to score some goals finally, hopefully, and he should start some games up front as well. So I think that will probably work in both their favors.
Perfectly put. I was going to ask Taran another question, and what do you have to say about Taran's statement that usually the issue is some of these signings are club signings,
Oh yes,
and some of the signings also are signings for the team. So what you have to say about his statement, because Taran is basically saying when the signings are made to complement the team, it usually works out. But when the signings are made for the sake of it by the board, usually it doesn't work out. What you have to say about that argument from Taran?
yes, I totally agree there, because I think a classic example is the Shevchenko argument, right? So Shevchenko at the time that
Yes.
he was signed, I think we got rid of Crespo the previous year, and obviously Kesman did not work out, and then the next big signing that we had was Shevchenko, right? But at the time Drogba already had taken that number 1 mantle, so in the striking position. So there was really no point of signing him, knowing that he is probably a Ballon d'Or winner, so he would expect to start. So there, the manager at the time, Mourinho, obviously is not the one who kind of get pressurized. So he did not play him in the position that he loves to, play. So there, the players, form had gone as a result. Similarly, I think even Morata. I cannot say Morata is totally a board signing, because I think Conte wanted Lukaku at the time, but Lukaku obviously wanted other shores, and he went to Man United, and we were left with no other choice but to go with Morata. But yes, if Tuchel is wanting Haaland, and especially the fact that Tuchel is managed in Germany, I'm sure he follows German football a lot. It's more like a gut. I feel that basically Haaland is something that Tuchel can work very well with, and I believe that yes, if Tuchel is in agreement with the board and vice versa, in this case it will work out. But if it's again a board signing, I agree with Taran there, because there's no point of getting in someone fitting in the team just after we have won the Champions League, when things are going well for you. Yes, we haven't done well in the league, but that's again a consequence of us having a lot of new signings last year, because they weren't used to the EPL. So this time
Yes.
the same people will be more used to the EPL. So another new signing in the EPL does not make sense if it's just from the board.
That makes sense to me. Before we touch on this question, this statement on the screen right now from Sodoraki, I'd like to go back to Taran and ask Taran, what do you think about Ankit's statement? Because he argued that some of those signings that didn't do well at the club, that the reason was basically because they weren't given enough time maybe to adapt to the Premier League. or maybe be well integrated into the team. And that's his argument was basically that was the reason why they failed. What do you have to say about that statement?
Yeah, with Morata, for example, I don't think he was. I think he was given enough time. In my opinion, he was given a season and a half to kind of prove his worth. Even under Maurizio Sarri, he was given a big responsibility. So he didn't sign any major strikers. He kept Olivier Giroud in there. He could have signed maybe Higuain a bit earlier, and he ended up signing him halfway through the season. He was given his chances, but I don't think that's the thing for adapting. Morata, he just didn't look up for it in the games. He didn't look like he was really interested. He wasn't really running as much as he could. He wasn't pressing high up like Timo Werner is now, for example. And we always come back to Timo Werner. Is he doing enough for the team just because he's not scoring? Well, this guy runs his he runs his bottom off the whole game. He absolutely sprints. He legs it to the last minute. He makes runs to Havertz can cut inside and around Edison. He does a lot of stuff that people don't see. And with Morata, it was just a case of he's not scoring the goals. He's not providing for the team. And for me, Morata was a reason why we didn't do the double. I mean, win the league back-to-back with Conte. Because with Diego Costa, we had a guy who would fight for the badge. He would score the goals. He would get the assists. He would do everything possible to win the game. And that's kind of how I feel. In terms of Erling Haaland, I think I did mention earlier that ball signings don't tend to work at this club. But, I get what Roma's saying. If Haaland is free and Haaland is available, then you have to sign him. Because this guy is going to be 20 years old. He scored 36 goals in the Bundesliga this season. The guy's an absolute monster. We don't want Real Madrid taking him up. We don't want Man City. Roman is a guy who wants Chelsea to be up to the very top. So if Haaland's going to come in, then, if he's available in the market, no clubs are going to spend that 172 million euros. Then I understand him taking it. I understand Roman buying him. With Kai Havertz, that's kind of my issue with this. With Havertz has really excelled in that striker role later on recently at the end of the season. What's going to happen to Havertz? Is he going to be playing it behind Haaland? Will that be a bit uneven with two kind of big tall players in the box? I don't really know. That's not the kind of system we play. So I don't really know what's going to happen unless we change formation. With Mason Mount drop out, who's going to play that cam role? I don't really know. But if Haaland's free and on the market, you have to take him surely because we want to be up there with. We've won the Champions League. We want to stay up there for a significant amount of years. And Erling Haaland is going to be one of the best strikers for 10 to 15 years.
So you are all for the Macu signing, and go ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely. If Haaland's free and is available, I want him. Yeah.
So you trust in that no matter the price tag of which we've established would most definitely be north of £100 million, that he will do well if eventually the club secures his signature.
Yeah, we spent 70 million on Morata for. Sorry, if you don't mind, we spent 70 million on Morata for a guy who was not a clinical goal scorer. He maybe scored in the Champions League final, just a lucky maybe rebound for Juventus. But this guy was not up there. He was not worth 70 million pounds. Haaland, in my opinion, is 100% worth 100 million. And like I said, he's 21 years of age, breaking records, scoring 7 goals in one game for Norway under 17s, whatever it was. This guy is an absolute machine, and he's probably one of the few players, along with maybe Mbappe, maybe Mason Mount, who I'd probably say is worth 150 million. And like I said, Roman is going to do anything to put us back up to the top.
How about the case? We've established the issue with that when it comes to Morata. How about the case of Fernando Torres? Wasn't he given enough time during his time at Chelsea? And by the way, to answer your question, Steve Chelsea, yes, he won the Champions League with Chelsea, but that's not the question. He didn't. In some cases, he didn't perform when the club expected him to perform, but he did well. Yes, he helped us win the Champions League. So what do you have to say in the case of Fernando Torres around? Was he not given enough time? If Ankit is arguing the time is they weren't given enough time, wasn't Fernando Torres given enough time to succeed at the club?
Yeah, Torres was not a guy who really needed time, in my opinion. He was already in the Premier League playing 3-4 seasons at a very, very high level for Liverpool. He was one of the best strikers in the league. He was given time under Ancelotti, and then Gus Hiddink, I think it was. He didn't succeed. Under Andre Villas-Boas, didn't succeed. Under Di Matteo, didn't succeed. Under Rafa Benitez, didn't succeed. And Mourinho, didn't succeed. So, yeah, Torres was definitely given a lot more time than a lot of the other players that we've signed. And I don't think with Torres it's time, but I agree with other players that maybe I said Morata did have enough time, but he could have been given maybe one more season for his price tag. Kepa's been given enough time, in my opinion. I mean, it's very balanced. It's not like the board just instantly doesn't give players enough time. He doesn't give players more time. It's always like never really the right balance at this club, and we want it to be there in the future.
Perfectly explained. How about the case of let's just make sure we clear that out, that they were given enough time. How about the case of Andrea Shevchenko? Wasn't he given enough time at the club?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Back in 2007, 2008, I didn't really watch much Chelsea, but I know Shevchenko was signed. He was like you said, a Ballon d'Or winner. He was a lethal striker, and there was a lot of hype around him. And yeah, Chelsea, he didn't fight. Oh, what the hell? He didn't really compete with Drogba, and yeah, I think Shevchenko wasn't given enough time. But I don't really want to make a comment on that. I think Ankit and Tyrone, you will probably make more on that. I didn't really watch much of him, to be honest.
Ankit, what you have to say, wasn't Fernando Torres given enough time at Chelsea?
Sure. So I'll actually revisit that because it seems like maybe I didn't, put it in the right manner. So what I meant is by time, they weren't managed well, right? So there's a huge difference between giving time and managing well. So by that, what I mean is because of the fact that we did not play the system where we had two strikers on the pitch. We never played that. In, I think, a decade between 2005 to 2015, I don't remember playing a two-striker system where we played with the second striker to begin games, right? So that is why they did not get enough time to maybe, take a back seat and, try and perform like as a team person. Fernando Torres, just like Werner is doing, I still remember he used to run his back off. Like that is what Fernando Torres was. He really worked hard. And towards like the latter part of his Chelsea career, he really improved on his heading ability and strength, which now he's even improved more as we see him. But yes, this guy wasn't, managed well in the positions or systems that we played in to actually, get success out of the team. And yes, it also comes down to basically mental management, right? So Tuchel is the kind of guy, at least in a short period that I've seen in Dortmund and PSG and Chelsea, is like he's going to have an arm around you if things go well, and he's able to kind of give that support, just like, say, for example, I know rival clubs will probably think about Harry Redknapp. So he is that kind of a manager for me versus a Mourinho. Mourinho is just cutthroat. He just goes for it. Whether you do it or not, you got to perform. He's not going to, even wait for like 2 matches and maybe, play him like, say, a second forward or inside forward, something like that. And that is where we missed, giving the time in the right manner to both Fernando Torres and Morata. Shevchenko definitely, he neither was given the time nor was he managed well in the system. Yes, there was a huge price tag, probably one of the world records at the time, but this guy really had ability. So I see that in the future, like I've already seen, like Taran mentioned about Havertz. It'll be very interesting where Havertz plays. Say, suppose we get a bigger name striker, right? So I still see Havertz fitting in, playing the amount of games that he wants to play and molded because of his age also. Because remember, when those guys were signed, when Torres, Shevchenko was signed, they were already like at the prime. But Havertz and even Haaland for that matter, they still have scope to improve, in my opinion.
Very well put, and thank you very much for taking the time to discuss the topic from that perspective. Before we continue, I'd like to address something on the screen. No, Sidiraki, I wasn't implying that Fernando Torres won the Champions League with Liverpool. Probably I misread the question, but he didn't win the Champions League with Liverpool. And I'm not sure if he won anything when he was at Liverpool. Am I right? I'm not sure he won anything. They were close to winning the league or something like that.
I think they won the League Cup, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. DJ Sav, welcome to the stream, my brother.
Hey, how you guys doing, bro? You good?
Yes. We're all doing well. Welcome. Always good to have you. So, do you need me to give you an overview of the topic so you'll be on par with everybody?
I have a rough idea what I think it is, but you might as well go through it. Is it regarding Schaffchenko and players like that? Schaffchenko when we got him for the Champions League, or was it regarding? Because I saw something about Shevchenko and Torres on there. So yeah. I mean, what's it? So what is it? What are you guys actually going on about?
Okay. Now, we were talking about the club's potential signing, and we'll also discuss the record of some of the record-breaking. Can you still hear me, DJ Sov? Are you still there? All right. Why we wait for him? Okay. Ankit, do you have any other?
You guys, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. So we were talking about some potential signings for the club in the summer, especially from the attacking talents that the club is rumored to be that they want to secure their signature. And we looked at the records of Alvaro Morata, Andriy Shevchenko, and Diego Costa, Didier, Drogba, and am I missing anybody? Fernando Torres. And given that the combined signing fee for Didier Drogba and Diego Costa is just around £56 million, whereas for Alvaro Morata alone and Fernando Torres should be around 120 or 130 million pounds. So, and also if you add Andrea Shashenko to that, it goes up even more. So the question is, isn't it obvious by now that big name signings and record-breaking signings doesn't work for the club? Are you there, DJ Sav? Okay, looks like we've lost him. So I'm going to come back to you, to start with you, Ankit. Do you have any cheaper alternative in mind that you believe can get the job done as much of, even better? In some cases, you can argue, get the job done even better than these big name or potential big name signings can do?
Yes, so that's a great point actually, Kochila, because that is something that I really wanted to touch upon in this discussion. So yes, the argument can be whether we pay big or not, but the better argument is, like you rightly said, that who's the better fit and who's basically going to be more effective sooner, right? Because we are looking at targeting the Premier League from what I know. So definitely, from the options that I see, I would be biased towards anyone who's been there, done that in England, in the Premiership. Again, going back to Torres, I know that he did that and he did not do so well with us, but that was
exactly. So that's not a guarantee.
Yes, but at the time, like Torres also was injured. He had a very badly injured knee, if you remember, right? So that was actually kind of hidden almost by Liverpool, and we kind of got scapegoated into that. But now, as things stand, the options are there for you. I don't know if they're available, but I think money talks. I think Ollie Watkins, I've been telling this from many days in many streams. Ollie Watkins is a person for me because I see Havertz definitely being molded into a tall striker, not a false nine. Yes, he can float around as well, which is added to whatever he has. He can, I know, not as good as Haaland maybe, but definitely in the Haaland mode is something that he can get to. So he'll be a tall striker. And the second striker, you have Ollie Watkins, someone who has pace, who kind of gets behind. So he is a kind of mold that I'm actually looking at, considering that we need to definitely mold Havertz more, even more than what he's done, right? So Ollie Watkins is a shout out for me. Again, he's not going to be a cheap striker, but for English, I think norms, he's probably going to be cheaper than Haaland, in my view.
Okay, perfectly. I think Ollie is a great talent, and he's proven that he can do it in the Premier League. But also, I like it that you also mentioned that that's not a guarantee that he will make it at Chelsea, because Fernando Torres is a very, very perfect example in that. In us trying to secure the signature of a player who's played in the Premier League and has done it in the Premier League, that is not, it's no guarantee that they will get the job done at Chelsea, because Chelsea is a different level from most of the clubs that we usually sign them from. Perfectly said. I don't know about you, Taran. Do you have any player in mind?
In terms of
any cheaper alternative? Yes.
Yeah. For me, I know this is all about cheaper players, but I don't really want to be signing a squad player right now. I think if we want to sign a striker, we might as well say we have Havertz as a striking option. I think he can really develop next season. So for me, my top three was Kane first. Then it was Robert Lewandowski as a cheaper option, in my opinion. Would have only been like 30, 40 million, I think. then it would have been Haaland, then it would have been Lukaku. For me, it was all about throwing. I know this is not really a cheaper player, but throwing everything at Harry Kane. I know he probably is not going to join us at all. Matt Law's reported it. I don't know if he said in the past. I'm sure he doesn't want to join Chelsea. Obviously, he's a Spurs in and out player, but yeah, I think Harry Kane really would just be amazing. He has the goals, he has the assists, he has the work rate, he has he's the full package, and I just would really like Harry Kane. But for a cheaper option, there is Jonathan David from Lille. He's a very good player as well. Since Victor Osimhen has stepped up and left to Napoli for a big price, Jonathan David and Burak Yilmaz have really looked like a dynamic duo. And even though it's been a tough season for PSG, to win Ligue 1 with that team with Lille and Jonathan David for being such a young player, I think he'll be a very good option. But he's more of like a false nine kind of player like Kai Havertz. He's not really your all-out number 9 that Chelsea want. So yeah, there's a lot of big strikers out there that we could sign as well. Chris Wood is out there. If Ankit wants to sign Chris Wood, you never know. But I don't really know what's going on. Ollie Watkins is a very good player, but not for me. I think he misses too many big chances as well. He does similar things to Timo Werner, in my opinion. I just prefer Werner. So, yeah, Harry Kane, Coach Schürrle, is one player who I'd literally throw. I throw my whole house. I throw my mirror, my chairs, my table, my windows. I'll throw literally everything to get this guy a club because, yeah, he would really take us to the next level.
Yeah, very well said. So, what about this guy that plays for Southampton, the English international? He's a fine finisher too. I think he's around 20. He should be around 28 to 29. What's his name again?
Danny Ings.
What's the guy? Who? Danny Ings. Yeah. How old is he right now?
27, 28, 28.
And in the season so far, he scored. Is it 16 goals or even more?
Yeah, I think he scored a bit less. Last season, he was insane. This season, he's dropped off a bit because of injuries and that not. But yeah, no, Danny Ings is a very, very good striker. Whether I think he's good enough to play for Chelsea as a starting striker in the Champions League, I'm not quite sure. I think we have to sign one of the big three if he is to get over Kai Havertz. But Ings he'll be a very good backup striker, in my opinion, not a starting striker. Anke, what do you think about that kind of matter?
I agree totally because if you are signing a striker, we'd rather sign for the first 11 to improve because our squad is awesome. I don't think there's an issue with the squad here. And I think someone was mentioning the comments about Tammy Abraham. I think they've already had a discussion in the chat in that. So yes, if at all we are signing a Danny Ings, for example, I would rather have. I know Tammy Abraham, it's gone. I don't think it's going to be repaired, the situation. But I would have Broja in, right? So Armando Broja is probably our person who can probably fill in the shoes as a super sub or someone who can play in the cup games, what Danny Ings would do, because Danny Ings would not start. I agree with Darren totally because I see Havertz starting most games, if not all. And that's where I came with the suggestion of Ollie Watkins. But yes, I think Lewandowski, if is available, definitely, we'll go with Lewandowski. But I believe the reports are that he doesn't want to come to England. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He's scared.
That could be the case. You never know because the truth has been so many stories of players who's left Germany to England and end up having issues adapting to the pace and physicality of the Premier League. Okay, before we continue to other cheaper alternatives that are not in the Premier League or not associated with a club in any way. How about this message on the screen from Sodoraki who says, why are we talking about Jonathan David when he was matched by Broja, who we own? Good point there, because Broja is really doing well at, how do you pronounce the name of the club he plays for in the Netherlands? Vietnam? Arnhem or something like that.
Vitesse Arnhem, yeah.
Vitesse Arnhem. He's been scoring goals for them. So because that is a good point, and the reason why I am that caught my interest is this: we have Kai Havertz, and although you can say he's not an all-out number 9, that's fine. But how about bringing in somebody like Amanda Broja? And also using him as a number 9, and then that gives him the opportunity to grow. While you can pair him with Kai Havertz, and we're fine. Do we really need to go for the likes of Erling Haaland, whose price tag will most definitely be north of 100 million pounds. Isn't it a good idea to bring in somebody like Broja who can do the job very well? Because that's and the place where he is right now was one of the first places that Mason Mount went for went out on loan, and they're quite good at developing players. And he spent a whole season there, which is enough for him to be on the bench. And we can bring in somebody like Danny Ings, while Broja develops and integrates into the team. Danny Ings can get the job done with the pairing of either Havertz or whoever big. If we want that big of a striker, whatever big striker we have on the team, they can get the job done. And what you have to say about that, Tehran?
Yeah, I think I put a tweet out. I think it was when Lukaku put the tweet out saying that he's saying Inter. I said if we can't get one of them big 4 or 5 strikers, then let's just stick with what we've got. I know clinicality has been a main issue this season. I know There's a thing with Janaj Viafort saying that Haaland, see it as the missing piece in the jigsaw. But I just think the only thing I'd kind of back up for signing Ings is to let Havertz develop even more. But I just think Havertz is going to be world-class in the future, whether it's next season, whether it's in a few years. I think Havertz is definitely going to be the big name in our squad very, very soon, along with Mason Mount. And whether we give him a season or not, I'm not quite sure. But Amanda Broja will be a very good option if we don't sign anyone else. We don't have to pay any money. He'll come back from loan. I believe he's the top goal scorer. If you guys come back in under 21s or under 20 players in the whole of Europe, the top 6-7 leagues this season now, Broja. He's been clinical. I mean, he's done an amazing amount of Vitesse on them. All he needs to do is just go to Derby and have a madness there and then come to Chelsea. All sorted. But I just think Broja will be a great backup option. If we don't need to sign anyone, like I said. If Olivier Giroud, I know he's already signed a contract, but if he does go to AC Milan still with a transfer fee, then I think Broja would be a very good option. If Abraham leaves, I don't think Broja is better than Abraham, obviously. That's kind of my opinion. I think Abraham would be better. But if you have Broja, Abraham, Werner, and Havertz, I'm honestly happy with that. I'm really happy. But if we have an option to sign Lukaku, Kane, or Haaland, come on. You know Roman's going to go for it.
Okay, yeah, but that we know he will always go for the best. I don't know if it is for the sake of the brand of the club. You know that sometimes that some signings make sense from the perspective of the club's brand and also building growing its fan base globally. But I'm gonna ask you this question because signing Haaland, if eventually that happens, creates a problem, and the problem is, who's going to drop out of the team? And you're not going to sign him to just start few games and not at least play at least 80-90% of the whole games, because that creates another problem. Who's going to make way for him? Yeah, because Havertz is a marquee signing. You can argue also that Werner is a big name signing, and he's been great for the team, even though he hasn't been scoring that much. He's been the one to like drag defenders or cause defenders to drift wide, while other people in the team stay centralized and then get the chance to score goals. So how do we solve that problem? Because somebody most definitely will give way for Haaland to work. How do we solve that problem?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. No, seriously, a very good mind-bending question. But yeah, I think if we really want to go for the league, we have to be brutal. I know you said it maybe could be for the brand, but this season we were well short of a Premier League title. If we sign a big striker with the amount of chances we create, the statistics line up that we're going to be lethal next season. We're like first or second in chances created, but 8th or 9th in chances taken. So yeah, I think signing a big striker would really do wonders for the team. Who would drop out? Depends on the formation change. If we change to a 4-2-3-1, which Tuchel's known to do, he'll have a whole month and a half to kind of train with these players after the Euros, and he can maybe transfer a formation. In that case, it'll probably be 2 DMs, maybe to Tchouaméni and Kante or Jorginho if he stays, and it'll be, I think, Mason Mount will probably start on the left. It'll be Havertz, Haaland, and someone else. And Timo Werner potentially. Will he even get in the team anymore? I'm not sure, but yeah, it's big who's going to drop out, but in this ruthless business, someone's going to have to drop out. It's not about sentiment, in my opinion, anymore. About if we're really going to become a brutal team that we were back in 04, 05, back in 09, 010, then we really need to, sign the best players we can at the minute. And it doesn't matter who drops out. Havertz can develop. He's not like he's 29, this guy's 21 years of age. He's going to become world class in the future. But yeah, for me, it's just about signing the best players possible. And then I want to see Chelsea become, the real big force of Europe that when I was a bit younger, I didn't really get to witness.
Yeah. Ankit,
Yes.
back to you. Now, I believe you heard the question that I asked him.
Yes. Who's going to miss out, right? Basically. That's a great question. So
yes, exactly. So how do we solve the problem? Because definitely, if you sign Haaland for a price that is north of 100 million pounds, the question remains: how do you solve that problem? Who makes way for him? Who will make way for him to get the game time that probably he will ask for? And at that price and at this age, before signing a contract to come to Chelsea, he will probably make sure that there's a clause that ensures that he gets game time.
Yes.
So how do we solve that problem?
Yes, I don't see game time being an issue really. I'll tell you the reasons why, right? So we already, I think, played about 55 games this particular season. The next season, we are going to have obviously the Club World Cup and obviously the Super Cup and things like that. So I think we'll potentially have 60 plus games. We have a preseason this time, right? So that is where Tuchel comes in. So he's going to, in my opinion, again, this is going to be like horses for courses, where Tuchel is going to play Havertz and probably another tall striker where he wants more strength in the team, and maybe play Werner and the other striker that we are left with, where we are not going to play that strength game, right? Maybe where we counter attack. That's where Werner is going to play. So maybe Werner will get 30 games, Havertz will get 30 games. So it's going to be a rotation between Werner and Havertz, the way I see it, if we sign Haaland, because yes, Haaland's going to be like the big name signing, expected to score goals, and the only way he plays is up top, right? He doesn't play like a Havertz or a Werner where they can switch positions if need be. So it's really going to be between Werner and Havertz. One of them plays, and I think it'll also affect maybe Pulisic and Ziyech, right? Because as I said, we'll probably play with two strikers up front in more games, because Mason Mount can play as a 10 behind them. So maybe Pulisic and Ziyech sit out and play both the strikers up front. That can be another option.
Yeah. Okay. Good way to solve that puzzle, because it's that, to me, I've thought about it and I'm not sure who, if I happen to be in the shoes of Thomas Tuchel, who to bench and who to start, because it becomes a problem and even more difficult to keep all the players happy. Okay, so let's talk about, I don't know, Ankit, do you know the striker Paul Onuachu? Do you know about him? Have you researched him? Paul Onuachu, do you want me to type it out for you?
Yes, please. I probably
not
aware of this.
Okay, I'll put his name.
Is that the Belgian striker that you're talking about?
No, he plays in for Genk.
Nigeria.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So what do you think about him? Do you think he's built and he's very powerful, he's quick, he's good on the ball, and he can put away scoring chances? He scored about 36 goals this season alone, and his last season record was around 20 goals plus last season, or even up to 25. So what do you think of him as an alternative, as a cheap alternative? Right now, he's valued at around, I think, 15 million pounds. Even we don't have to sign him as the main guy. These are guys that we can sign. Okay, let's give it a try. And if he comes in and starts firing on all cylinders, then we're good to go. And we have other alternatives in the team, other players in the team that can complement whatever that he brings to the team. And look at where we've come so far we've been complaining about not scoring goals. And what if Timo, when he came to Chelsea, what if he meets all expectations and what if he's scored quite a number of goals for us? We won't be talking about Haaland at this point. So what do you think about Paul? Yes.
See, as in I did look up some of his videos. I've not watched him live, to be honest. But yes, he definitely, the guy looks impressive. No two ways about it. But again, we are picking someone on ability. I know there's a scouting system in football, and that's something that works great in certain clubs. for a striker where it becomes really critical. The thing which is not letting us go to the next step is basically not finishing chances. So I would still like someone who's tried and tested, proven. If we are going for, say, not a big name player who doesn't have English experience at all, again, I go back to maybe our loanee players, right? Not Batshuayi, but at least Broja. I'll give you an example, right? When Lukaku was, sent to Everton, when Mourinho came back a second time, right? I think that will be a classic example. At that time, we signed Samuel Eto'o. So Samuel Eto'o was probably in his last hurrah, right? And he had just come from Russia at the time, if I'm not wrong, after following Willian, and he had a great season prior to that. So we thought, look, Samuel Eto'o is going to be like the great striker that we have at least for a couple of seasons, and Mourinho decided on that and sent Lukaku on loan because he needs game time. The same thing is going to happen to Broja. Now, when Lukaku came back, what were we left with? We were left with so many strikers in the squad. So he had no other option but to sell Lukaku when an offer came in. The same thing is going to happen to Broja. I know Taran mentioned about going brutal and just going with it, but at some point we need to definitely acknowledge that we have someone in Broja who has potential as well. So if we are signing someone else with potential plus we have Broja, that doesn't make sense. So keep a guy with potential in your squad, and this is the right age for Broja to actually be molded with a certain number of games. He doesn't expect to start every game for Chelsea. Like, again, he'll start only maybe 10 games in maybe the League Cup and the FA Cup, but that is what is okay with him, in my opinion, with him maybe coming on late for a few games and being like the third striker. And again, that means that I'm assuming Giroud is going to go out, and only then he kind of gets even those 10-15 games I'm talking about, right? So signing someone totally new who's having potential doesn't make real sense. Yes, if we did not have Broja, I would have gone for him. And of course, another assumption being that Tammy Abraham is going to leave.
Very well put. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about that. Tarana, I'm going to come back to you, and maybe while we wait for the likes of DJ Soft to join and express their opinion in this topic. What do you think about Chelsea potentially signing Adama Traore? How does he fit the profile of players that we currently have in the team, or is this just a rumor as usual?
From a fan's perspective, I'm very excited about that. I think Adama is a very exciting player to watch. I mean, it's very rare you see a player in the forward, on the wings especially, that much strength.
Yes.
Guy Ake Benwa as a winger, he's a monster, and I'd love to see him. I think in that right wing back role under Nuno Espirito Santo last season, I mean, not this season, but the season before, I mean, we saw him rip teams apart. Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea at times, many other clubs. And I just think if we do stick with this formation, I think he's better than Reece James in that role. In my opinion, Reece James can start to transition back to right centre-back. I mean, he's played there a few times this season. I just think all he's lacking there is his reading of the game. Azpilicueta's not going to be here forever. I think if Reece James comes back, Adama Traore on the wing. I mean, there's a lot of talk that apparently Tuchel's saying that we're quite weak on the right-hand side. We have James who can play right centre-back. We have Hudson-Odoi, but then, we have Azpilicueta, who's a very good player playing right wing-back. So what do we do? The easy solution is to buy Traore, who might not fit under the new Wolves manager, whether it's Bruno Lage, whether it's Leonardo Jardim. There's a lot of options that can happen. But if that's my opinion as a fan, maybe not as a tactical kind of genius, then I'm saying I love Adama at this club. I want to see him at Stamford Bridge, body and pass players, driving at players. We like the players who take people on. Pulisic last season after lockdown, we want to see Adama absolutely ripping past teams. And that's why I think it could work as well. If it's not too expensive, I think it could definitely work. And he can also play right wing. He can play left wing. He can play left wing back. He can probably play cam. I think he's a very versatile player in the system. And we're quite weak on the wings on the minute. If we can't get Jadon Sancho, if he's going to Man United, I think we're linked to Pedro Neto at the minute, guys, as well. So, I mean, we're literally fishing at Wolves. I feel we're bad for Wolves at the minute. We're just, getting the fishing hook out, just reeling them all in. But, I don't know whether it's Traore or Neto. But I love Traore over Neto. I don't know about you guys. Neto's a guy who I'd rather have Werner starting. I'd rather have Mount, Havertz, Ziyech, Pulisic starting over Neto. But Traore is just a different dimension. He's a train. He's an engine. And I just think it could really be a good signing. He's only about 23, I think, as well.
Yeah. Oh, he's just 23. I've followed him, but and I like his energy. He's. I mean, he can bully defenders, and the guy is good with his feet. Also, I think with Chelsea and with a much better set of players around him, I think he can do even better. And Tyrone, back to you again. What's the price tag like?
Yeah, I think it's around 30 to 40 million for Traore, which I think is decent. It's not too much. I mean, we're just talking about 30 million pounds if it's nothing right now. But, I just think in football, that's not that much. Roman is probably swimming in money right now. So that'll be all right for him, I think. With Traore, I just think 30 million is a good deal. He has the pace. He has the drive. He has the work rate. He can defend quite well. He's good at dribbling. It's just an end product with Traore that I think we're all missing. He's just a guy who has everything apart from the end product, which is not something we need. But as a rotation player, as a versatile player, as offering something different, I think it would be a very, very good deal, in my opinion, for signing Traore.
Yeah. Thank you very much for taking the time to explain that. Also, Bobby, you're welcome to the stream. MC Kyle and Ludichenko, big up to you all. Giorgio, you're all welcome to the stream. And I've also added the link to the panel in the chat. So if you want to join and express your opinion with the panel, you're very welcome to do so. So I look forward to having you guys join the panel. I guess that's a good way to put it. Let me see if I can find. All right, so we can can you address this question here on the screen, Taran? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Clyde, I think you need to do some research. FFP is scrapped from 2022 and 2023 season. It has not been scrapped because I've heard somebody mention that again when we talked about going for cheap alternative to be sure we're not going to get into trouble with the FFP rules. They've argued that it's been scrapped. So can you please talk about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, as a biased Chelsea fan, obviously I like that kind of factor. But as a football fan, obviously I'm a massive fan of the game. I think that's an absolute joke, in my opinion, that's been the case. It's allowed clubs like us, Man City, Barcelona to just completely bridge a gap between the smaller clubs this season.
Yes.
That's why a factor that why we spent 220 million last summer, despite only finishing in the top four, was that FFP's been scrapped. I mean, Man City each year spending hundreds of millions despite without winning titles, even just winning the League Cup. They're just spending hundreds of millions. I don't think it's fair. I think if football want to make it fair, like UEFA want to make it fair, maybe implement the 50+1 rule for different leagues. That could definitely help. That means the fans own 51% of the whole club. They have decisions in the transfers, in the financial spendings of the clubs. That's what happens in the Bundesliga at the minute. I mean, Bayern Munich do have a huge gap, but Bayern Munich is still owned by 51% of the fans. So I don't really know what can happen, but that is just, I think that's another reason why I think the Super League kind of was happening. Just another clear indicator that UEFA really are a big issue in football. The same with FIFA, that the way they're running. I mean, yes, obviously, you're the governing body of one of the biggest financial sports. You're going to have a lot of power, but at least make it fair for some of the smaller clubs. I mean, Chelsea spending this much money each year. You compare that to West Brom, to Fulham, to Southampton, who when they had injuries mid-season, when they were losing 9-0, they had academy players who never even played a game in their life coming into the squad because of their lack of squad depth. It's just, as a football fan, I'm saying I hate it, but as a Chelsea fan, I bloody love it.
Yeah, perfectly put. But this comment here by MC Kyle that's on the screen just don't want us to go bankrupt like Barca with the Messi. Or no, yeah, you get that wedge bill and situation, because the truth is, if we keep spending, we have to realize that first of all, this is a business for somebody, and he's been pumping money into it for quite some time now, for years, for almost 15 years or so. And has he made some gain? I can't really say that off the top of my head. But the truth is, we must recognize that first of all, this is a business. But we've been so spoiled as Chelsea fans that, yeah, go get them. Just go get them. Just go get it. We usually don't do the mathematics and think about, okay, what is the financial ramification that potentially might follow us spending, like we're printing money. You know, we have some machines that print money for us. So it's important to recognize that, first of all, It is somebody's business. So we must spend wisely. We must not, even if this financial fair play thing is scrapped right now, we should also spend wisely, because the owner of the business is also going to make some gain. He just can't keep spending and pumping money into the club every time just because he can. And we must recognize that he's not going to be there forever. God forbid, something might happen and somebody else that his relative, his son or so, takes over and then be profit focused. Then we're in trouble, because we're not going to be able to spend that much again. So we must start thinking on how to spend wisely, and spend like it's a business. Like if we lose money, that it's going to hurt, and not just spend because we have it. So, and that's, by the way, and thank you very much, Tyrone, for taking the time to explain that to the listeners here, that the financial fair play is still in play until, is it 2022, 2023? And with that note, I say welcome to Bobby. Big up to you, Bobby. It's always good to have you.
Hey, big up, guys. Just thought I'll join you. I've kind of caught the tail end of somebody mentioning something about financial fair play. And I heard what you were saying, Chelsea perspective about Chelsea and everything being a business. You know, it makes me laugh sometimes, because I come from a generation of Chelsea fans. I've been with Chelsea for decades, and I've really seen some downers. We've had some good times, but we did go through some downers, especially towards the late 70s and early 80s. And I have more optimism for where the club is, well, based on what I know about the club, than what I'm hearing from a lot of the younger Chelsea fans that haven't seen anything, relatively. Listen, football is a business, yes and no. To Abramovich, if you had ever listened to the one and only interview he gave, he said if he wanted to make money, he wouldn't have gone into football. It's not about money for him. It's about enjoying the buzz and the glory of his club. Now, Chelsea are spending revenue. At the moment, because of the way the whole pandemic and everything has panned out, and the fact that we've been successful in this period, our revenue has exploded. Chelsea Football Club, I was talking on Baggy's platform, and people weren't believing me. Chelsea will never come and confirm it, because it'll be foolish to say so. But at the moment, Chelsea Football Club can afford to expect to spend in excess of 250 to 300 million in this summer. It is staggering money, but they have the money. Now, people may balk at it, they may doubt it, because the club, if you ask them today, they will tell you it is not true. Of course they will. Because if everybody knows that, they're going to, Tom, Dick and Harry Spuds is going to be costing 300 million when it comes to Chelsea bidding for him. But the club is financially buoyant. Now, the issue of financial fair play was only ever created to hurt Chelsea in the first place. And when it was found that there were so many other clubs that were not benefiting from it, they've now started trying to backtrack, especially as the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, Inter Milan, they're all in financial special measures, really. And so they need to relax FFP in order to flood the market with money. Money makes money. Real Madrid have players they want to sell. And if clubs, because of the pandemic, don't have the cash from their sales to buy these players, there's going to be a what you call a strangled market. So don't worry about FFP. Even Erling Haaland, when he first came out, I said on Baggy's platform, I'm not trying to big up myself. I'm just saying, the logic behind it. At the moment, Chelsea Football Club is the most attractive project for top flight players in the world. It is more attractive than Real Madrid. Yeah, it is more attractive than Barcelona. Everybody wants to be here. We have the finances to make them live the life they want to do, and we have
Yes.
the successful club, which has been proven by the Champions League win. That really has helped us, and it's time for us to really make hay while we're in this position. Because after a couple of years, I will give it maybe next year or the year after, the likes of Real Madrid will slowly start to come back because there's always funding initiatives sent in their direction. So
Even by the country's government sometimes.
exactly. So my message to Chelsea fans: don't be so what should I say? We're too. I just sense a lot of fear. A lot of unnecessary precaution. This is the time to be bold. What I perceive has happened. Roman wants Haaland. He's a businessman. Now,
Yes.
forget what Dortmund say. Just as I said on Baggy's stream, if Chelsea go and drop £100 million on the table and say, look, we want to talk to you about Erling Haaland, they're going to come to the table and talk. There is nobody, even Roman Abramovich wouldn't walk away from a £100 million proposal. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be bold. Even Kylian
Yes, but
Mbappe.
I get your point totally, Bobby. My question is, because we're so spoiled right now, and I'm all for it. Let's go for the big names and further promote the club's brand globally and flex our muscle because we can. And financially right now we can. We won the Champions League, so we get a lot of revenue from that and all the avenues for income. So we can spend as much as we want right now. But my argument is, what happens if tomorrow things change and we have an owner, we get to have an owner who is profit focused, who wants to make profit and not just run the club, because it can happen. So this is the time for us to use our platforms and let the fans know this is business after all.
Well, we deal with that if and when we get to it. Football is
okay. When we get, so your argument is when we get to that bridge, we cross it.
Well, of course, because it's of no value because it hasn't happened and it doesn't. I mean, on what basis do we say it's going to happen? Football is a business built on success. In the late 1970s and 1980s, when Liverpool were owned by Littlewood's betting company, they had all the money and they were winning everything. When Littlewoods left the platform, then they dipped. This is football. This is what happens. You go for the success while you are able to financially, and when the tide turns, it turns. There's always a time where a new sheriff is going to come into town or a new situation will arise. But Chelsea is in such a stable financial position right now that even if Roman is taken over by his son and maybe his son is interested in profit, there will be the profit there to have. The only sad thing about that is that it will take away the success on the field because, football is a business that you have to pump money into continuously. There is no successful football club that has ever done anything but that. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the most important thing I picked from your last statement for your input is football is a business built on success. You gotta have success, and then the financial aspect of the whole thing will follow. I want to say a big up to Button Ballers Max. You're welcome to the stream. Yes, and I'm going to take you and Bobby back a bit to explain to help you guys understand the topic overall, so and ask you guys questions so that you can come in and help us solve it. So I don't know if you can see the image on the screen. Yep. The stats. Okay. First of all, we have the Drogba, and he was signed for £24 million in total. After his first stay and after his return, when he left the club and came back again, he played a total of 381 games and scored 164 goals. Then we have Diego Costa, who was signed for £32 million. He played 120 games and he scored 59 goals. And then we have Alvaro Morata, who was signed for £70 million. He played 72 games and scored 24 goals. Then we have Andrea Shashenko, who was signed for £30.8 million. He played 77 games and he scored 22 goals, so to speak. So as you can see, the signing fee for Didier, Drogba, and Diego Costa combined should be around £56 million, while the signing fee for Alvaro Morata alone and Fernando Torres. Yes, I didn't show Fernando Torres, who was signed for 50 million.
I was about to say, where's Torres?
Yes, and then he played 172 games, thank you, Max, and scored 45 goals. Combined with that of Alvaro Morata is around 120 million plus. And that of Andriy Shevchenko then, and these three players from Fernando Torres, Andrea Shashenko, Alvaro Morata were all record signings. Am I right? All of them.
Yep. But
okay, so all of them, and you can argue that three of them did not live up to that is, they didn't fulfill what the club signed them for. But for Diego Costa and Didier Drogba, it is a different story altogether. They were signed for lesser amount and they were not record signings then. Is any of them a record signing? Didier Drogba or Diego Costa?
No.
None of them. And they did quite well for the club. So my question is, isn't it time for the club to start seeing these things and say, okay, record-breaking signings don't really work for us?
No. You got to look at context.
Yes, I'm coming. I'll leave it to you to explain. Isn't it time for the club to start considering, okay, why has it not worked? And for before you continue with the perspective you want to bring, you want to take that question to, why do you think that is? Why do you think that the record signings they haven't done well for the club? They've all been failures, you can argue, except for Fernando Torres' case changed because he won the Champions League with the club and he contributed quite well. So what do you want to say?
I can answer these questions perfectly because you got to look at the context, as I said. All right. First of all, let's take Andriy Shevchenko. Okay, Andriy Shevchenko was a vanity buy by Roman Abramovich. He wasn't wanted by the club. He didn't. There wasn't, because at the time we had Ancelotti as manager, and he didn't really fit into the way Ancelotti wanted to play. Coupled with that as well, this guy was injured. He had back injury problems and other injuries. We bought him when at probably similar to when Real Madrid bought Hazard, actually, when he's taken all his knocks, and it wasn't the Shevchenko of a few years ago, but because of the Russian connections, obviously Ukrainian, he was somebody who Abramovich really wanted to get. So he didn't really do his due diligence. It was more of a vanity buy, so it was never going to work out. All right, we go to Torres. I'm not sure if you heard Carragher speak before, and I heard this before Carragher spoke, actually, and I read a lot about this. This guy was injured. We bought an injured player. We rushed his medical, and we didn't even do a proper medical when we bought this guy. He had a damaged knee. Liverpool were laughing. They said they actually quoted that 50 million just as a put off for Chelsea, never thinking they'll get. They're probably looking at 30 million that they wanted for this guy, but when Chelsea offered 50 million, the Liverpool hierarchy could not believe their luck that they were getting this player. And the other thing with Torres as well, again, it was somebody who Abramovich wanted, but he didn't fit into the philosophy of the way we played. I was listening to Eddie Newton talk the other day, and what Eddie Newton said is, look, the way Liverpool played back then, they had a guy called Xabi Alonso and you had Steven Gerrard, and what they used to do, they used to play long, direct balls, and Torres played on the shoulder of the last defender, and he liked those balls to utilise his pace to run the channels, etc. Chelsea played a more patient build-up game, so he wasn't used to that style of playing. That's why he didn't really adjust to our style. So Eddie Newton and a couple of others had to work hard on the training ground to improve his all-round game. The Morata one, going to the Morata one, Morata he wasn't our first choice, as you probably know, or those who don't know. We were pursuing Lukaku. We thought that Lukaku indicated that he wanted to come to Chelsea, and he was all geared up to come. Ancelotti, not Ancelotti, it was Conte at the time wanted him. As you can see how well he's performed under Conte at Inter. He had plans of how he wanted to play with him in the side. And then it was obviously the agent's fees by Riola that put us off that particular deal. So that's why we bought in Morata. Morata was someone I didn't really want in the first place anyway, because it was quite telling that the goalkeeper, Buffon, at the time when he was at Juventus before, he said this guy he's good quality player, but when things don't go his way, then his head drops a lot. So I had to give him a lot of pep talks when he was feeling down and everything else. And I said, you know what? Actually, when he comes to a club like Chelsea, he's going to be in the spotlight all the time. He's going to have to be performing all the time. And if things don't work out, is this a man that we can rely on? And as I knew, when things, he started off okay, then he hit a little rough patch, and his head went, and he just didn't really get involved in the game a lot. So I just think one panic buy, two bought injured, and we didn't do our proper scouting with these particular players. I don't want to go on too much because I want other guys to talk, but just on one of the notes that I came to tail end of what Bobby was saying about when he was saying about profit, just getting the best player there is or whatever. So Sam, what we're doing now, if you even see with the Hazard deal, okay, we didn't spend a lot of money for Hazard. We spent 32 million for him, but we maximised profit. We sold him at the right time for us for 150 million pounds. And we got profit on them. The reason why we're getting in people like the Haalands of this world, or trying to get Haaland, and we've got Havertz, is because the clubs see them as not only a good investment at the time, if they want to move on, because eventually they'll probably want to try their in another league, like the La Liga or somewhere. Then, if even if Haaland, if we do get him for 150. And he proves to be a success, and we get 5 or 6 good years out of him. When he's 27, 28, the likes of your Real Madrid or your Barcelonas are going to come in for him. And we'll probably be able to sell him for 180, 190 million and get our money back on him. Because that's the model Chelsea want now. Young players who we can sell on, just like we did like with Oscar, with Juan Mata and people like that, who we can sell on for a profit. So the club are looking at the profit side as well. They're not looking at just buying players at the at the wrong side of 20 without no profit margin. You look at the club strategy now. That's what they're trying to do. I'll shut up now and let other people talk.
Yes. I appreciate you taking the time to bringing your perspective into the discussion, and it makes quite sense the way you explained it. And I think your point doesn't differ that much from Taron's point. Taron, you argued, what was that again? You said how you compared signings for the club and signings for the team.
Yeah, I mean, the club has never really got manager signings. Chilwell was not a manager. Was probably the only manager signing, sorry, I can imagine in recent history. Was Conte, did he really get any signings he wanted? Maybe David Luiz. Kante was definitely not just for Conte. Kante was for the future. I think manager signings is probably, especially with Thomas Tuchel, he just won the Champions League, back him as much as possible. If Tuchel wants X, Y, and Z, give him X, Y, and Z. Don't give him A, B, and H. You know what I mean? So, I think, that's definitely my point that we've seen with Morata, with Torres, with other players, that it's definitely not worked out. But whereas with Chilwell this season, how well has he done as a manager signing? So, I mean, it's very difficult what people can think about it. But, I mean, in my opinion, I think manager signings always do better.
Thank you for bringing up that point, and I'll make sure to maybe another stream for it, and it makes perfect sense to compare the manager signings and the team signings for the team, and of which you argue that the signings for the managers do well, while the signings for the sake of the brand and the board, for all signings by the board, usually struggle to make it. So, Bobby, I'm coming over to you, Bobby. Why do you think it is like that? That the cheaper players that we've had at the club has done very well than the record-breaking signings?
Well, it depends what you mean by cheaper. I think
Cheaper, for instance, if you look at the screen, let me take you through the screen again if you can see it. Yeah, if you can see, Didier Drogba was signed for £24 million. He played 381 games. That is for his two state. That is first after his return. Everything is there, and then goals is 164 goals. And then we have Diego Costa, who was signed for £32 million. He played 120 games and he scored 59 goals for Chelsea. And then you have Alvaro Morata, who was signed for £70 million, 72 games and 24 goals. You have Andrea Shashenko, £30.8 million, 77 games and 22 goals. And you also have £50 million signing Fernando Torres, 172 games and also 45 goals for the club. As you can see, the cheaper signings there, that is Didier Drogba and Diego Costa. They did very well for the club. They scored quite a lot of goals, whereas the record signings, they did not live up to expectations. So why is that? My question is, isn't it time for the club to start looking beyond names and also use the scouts to find cheaper alternatives who can do even better, who can get the job done, or maybe do even better than these big names can do?
Yeah, there are two things here. First of all, from the short period of time between the purchase of Didier Drogba to the purchase of Fernando Torres, the transfer market became considerably inflated. Drogba, at the time we got him, was perhaps one of the most sought after young strikers of his era. But the 24 or is it 28 million pounds that we spent on him at the time was a considerable sum of money at that time. That's one factor that's caused that. Another thing here is, look, Chelsea do look at. I don't believe Chelsea's a club that goes after names, Galacticos. We're not interested in that, and we haven't shown that's our model. We may have done it when Roman first came in to try and catch up and start putting some silverware in the coffers. But, everything about the Chelsea model now is not about that. We are getting people through the academy and we're trying them. And we're also buying players that many people don't know. I mean, Mendy is an excellent testimony to that. But when you are achieving things and you want to stay at the top end of football, you will find that you have to buy the best. There comes a time where, good things don't come cheap. And after a while, the market is just skewed towards those top end players. If you want, for example, if you win the Champions League like we've won, and you want to sustain that ability, you've got to bring in at least one marquee, because that marquee potentially is going to give you that X factor, is going to give you that extra bit to be able to achieve that. Now, you make the point that it didn't work with Torres, which Max has explained. He also spoke about Shevchenko, which is very clear, and Max explained that as well. Didier was a success. Diego Costa, as far as I'm concerned, was a success. I think the issue was that as Chelsea has evolved as a club under Roman, our purchases and our purchasing targets and our business in the transfer market has changed considerably. The transfer ban has seen to that. Hence, we've got the likes of Mason Mount and Reece James coming through, and where we've got Andreas Christensen. All these are academy products. So to say that we only look to spend on big name players it's not correct. But in this case, unless you can tell me which striker out there Chelsea should go for, I can't really see anything that doesn't justify the club being bold enough to go for an Erling Haaland or a Harry Kane or an Mbappe or indeed a Lukaku. That's the area we're in. That's the stratosphere in which we operate.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for you, Bobby.
Yeah.
So right now, are you sure you can't? You're quite sure that if Chelsea, if eventually Chelsea secures the signature of Erling Haaland, that he will do well at the club?
Well, nothing is 100% in life. You never know, but you can't live in fear. You can't not do something because you're afraid it won't work.
Yes.
That is such a negative. This guy has shown to be good enough. The owner is quite prepared to invest in buying him. Now, if he doesn't work, well, it will be a bad thing. But you've got to. Well, what's that saying? Who dares wins. You can't. You can't, even when you're doing business outside of football, and you invest in something. You're not always sure it's going to work, but you do your due diligence, as Max mentioned earlier, and you go through all the probabilities as to whether it will work or not. And if it's high-end probable, you go for it. And this is what we're doing, hopefully, with Erling Haaland. He is very high-end probable. His sell-on value is significant. In fact, I've heard, if what I've heard is true, in the last 2 hours, that the deal is more or less done, but the issue really is his wages, and they're trying to find a way around that. I think we should go for it. We've got to go for it, unless you've got someone else that we don't know about. And the problem
This is just a conversation. This is just a conversation between minds. Yeah, exactly. Between us on whether the club should consider going for cheaper alternatives who can get the job done, even in most cases better than the big names and the record signings. Because usually we've seen, and it's on record, that the record signings haven't really worked for us. Do I want the club to sign Haaland? Of course I want the club to sign Haaland. But we're here to argue, to look at the club signings and see how the cheaper alternatives how they've worked for the club and how the record signings haven't worked to the club up to the point that we've been called clubs that killed the careers of known attackers. Shevchenko was brilliant for Milan before he signed for Chelsea. He was. Morata did well at Juventus. Yes.
Explain the reasons when he was finished. Yeah. He came from a slow-paced league to a fast-paced league. When he finished with Chelsea, he retired. So that's not even an argument. Right now, if Chelsea get Haaland in, they're also going to have probably keep Giroud, and they're bringing in Armando Broja from the academy, because I hear that maybe Tammy may be part of the Haaland deal. So they're not just hedging their bets on the high end marquee signing.
Yes.
There are others in and around the squad that will make that forward line enriched. We're looking for success.
Yes. How about the case of Fernando Torres? He played in the Premier League and was signed, you can say, right at the peak of his career, because he was on fire. Was there an issue there?
Yeah, he was overplayed by Liverpool.
Yeah,
he was overplayed. They played him when he was injured. They ruined him because he was playing through the pain barrier. I said, it's just like having the best car in the world, but then you don't look after it, and you're just driving it. It gets clapped out. It looks good on the outside. It's this pristine new car. I mean, it's one of the best cars, but we don't know what's under the body. The body is mashed up.
That's a very good analogy.
Yeah.
Very good analogy, and thank you for putting it that way, because it will help most of us that didn't know the condition of the vehicle before Chelsea bought it. It is funny, but that's a very good way to put it. And thank you very much for that input, Max. So right now, I was going to ask. Let me address this statement on the screen. Decline. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. The argument isn't that Kai Havertz will fail or any of our players will fail. We're just looking at the club's business in the market, the big name signings or record breaking signings, and also cheap alternatives, comparing them. We're just having a conversation, and you're welcome to join the panel. The link is there in the chat. So, but that's by the way, Bobby, if I'm going to start with Ankit and then down to our button ballers. Ankit, what cheap alternative, do you know of any cheap alternative in case Bobby said yes? Bobby did tell us a few minutes ago that the deal is practically done, if I understand him correctly.
Yes.
So do you know of any cheap alternative if by any chance the deal falls through, or if the club, let me say if the clubs end up not being able to secure his signature?
Listen, we already spoke about Danny Ings. I briefly spoke about Ollie Watkins, as much as like he may not be so cheap. But I think one of the chats mentioned Dusan Lajovic. That's how you pronounce him. I think he's a Serbian striker playing in the Italian Serie A. So again,
how many goals this season?
He plays for Fiorentina, 20.
Fiorentina.
Right,
Yeah.
he scored about
20 goals.
Correct. That's what he scored. And so, see, as in potential, yes, definitely they have great potential. But I will definitely stick to the point of, if we are at all signing a potential striker, why are we even signing a potential striker? We have Armando Broja, who can probably play under the wings of maybe even a Havertz or Werner for that sake, right? I would rather prefer someone who's been there, signed by Chelsea already, rather than again going for another potential striker. Because if we are going for another potential striker, then at the end of the day, just imagine, we'll just forward time 1 year down the line, Broja goes on loan and he scores maybe 25 goals at maybe not EPL level, but maybe one level below. And I'm sure another big name club will come in for him, and he's going to be the next big thing. That is what exactly happened in the past, right? And then we've had so many people go that way. I think obviously Salah wasn't a direct kind of a performer after going from Chelsea, but eventually he was very successful. Same with Lukaku. Lukaku, in fact, was even more successful earlier, right? So I would definitely stick strongly to Broja. I disagree with Bobby only on one point, is I don't see Giroud staying. If at all, we are signing Haaland, right? So, or rather, let's imagine we sign one striker. We're all forgetting it's Werner's second season, right? Werner, by his profession, by whatever he calls himself, I think he's probably going to say that he's a striker, right? So I think Werner Havertz has probably been converted into a striker. I wouldn't call him a midfielder anymore. So we have Werner, we have Havertz. We are going to have a third striker. I would imagine we'll at least sign one, right? And probably the fourth who gets a few cup games would be Broja. So I don't see Giroud actually coming in. If Giroud stays, again, it'll be the same story of Broja going out on loan and then being sold eventually. And we're never going to get to know how good he is, even with the squad in training.
Thank you very much, Ankit. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to add your input to that aspect of the discussion. Bobby, I'm coming to you right now. 2 questions for you. Do you have any cheaper alternative in mind, should or if by any chance the deal, as you explained, it's that the Chelsea are working on now to secure the signature for Erling Haaland, if by any chance it falls through, do you have any cheaper alternative in mind that you would suggest the club go for? Or do you have any player on loan that you think would do a good job as well? And the second question for you is, now, if the club signs Erling Haaland, definitely he creates a problem. Who's going to drop out of the team to ensure that he gets more game time? That I probably think there will be a clause in his contract, on his contract, to ensure that he plays at least 90 or 80% of the games that the club will play. Over to you, Bobby.
Yeah. Well, without certainly the need for a top-end striker is a priority for Chelsea. And if we don't secure this person, who at the moment is on the very, very short list of marquee signing players,
Yes,
it's a problem. we will have to be inventive with what we've got and probably end up having to keep hold of the likes of Giroud and Tammy, and indeed still continue with the project of encouraging Armando Broja into the first team squad. But we will still be lacking in that high-end player. And
Yes.
I've heard many names, people have spoken of, the likes of Ollie Watkins, Danny Ings, a couple of these other guys that have already been mentioned playing in Italy and so on. I'm very concerned with having to buy, what shall I say, second choices. I think Chelsea have done that in the past, and that, to me, is more dangerous than having your first choice not work. Because once you've got your second choice, they are there, and you can't get rid of them when you really want your first choice, vis-a-vis the likes of Kepa. So I would rather, if we weren't able to get our marquee, we try somehow and persist with what we've got until we can get a marquee. But the problem with that is that it's going to affect severely our capacity to repeat success. Because once you've won, everybody's gunning for you. And you've got to be better than you were the season before in order to win again. So it'll be a tragedy. And that's why I think Roman's going all out for Haaland. Your second question about, what was the second question?
The second question is, if the club eventually secures the signature of Erling Haaland, his signing creates a problem. Who's going to make way to ensure that he starts as much games as probably there'll be, like I said, there'll probably be a clause in his on his contract that he's going to be starts at least he's going to start at least some measure of, let me say, percentage of games. So it's definitely that somebody will have to make way.
Well, not necessarily.
How do we solve that problem? Yeah, go ahead.
I know what you're saying, but
Yes.
I always look at things holistically. At the beginning of the season, when the likes of Rudiger and Azpilicueta were being benched,
Yes.
who was to know that come January they would play so many games? The Premier League season in itself is a long season. Not to mention a season with Champions League football. Not to mention a season that will have players going away on the African Cup of Nations. Not to mention a season that will have all sorts of international competitions leading up to the World Cup that would put players at sort of risk, as it were. And not to mention a season that will take us to goodness knows where to play the World Club Cup. Goodness me. Those players are going to have more than enough football to play. Chelsea is a performance-based club. Now, I am yet to see, even with Werner, Werner has his uses. If he wasn't effective, he wouldn't be in the team. I'm yet to see a player that can come to Chelsea and not perform and get away with it. If Haaland is playing XYZ number of games, it's because he's performing and banging in the goals.
So there's no guarantee he starts every game because he's signed for a fee that's probably going to be in the north of £100 million.
The Chelsea perspective, it'll be impossible to play every game. Impossible. We've got January when we've got the FA Cup starting. What is the point in playing him if we're going to, for example, with all due respect, Shrewsbury? An away game at Shrewsbury. That's the time to play the likes of Armando Broja. So there's no way. He will play if he is as good as we hope he is. He will
and the
play.
World Club Cup as well, Bobby. Don't forget
exactly.
That.
That's another one. He will play at maybe 70% of the games, but there are a lot of games. Look at what's his name, Jorginho. Jorginho at the end of the season when we had injury problems with Kante and Kovacic, he was knackered. He played 2 games a week for a month, and at the end of it, he was finished. We can't do that. That's why we need the squad. And no matter who you are, marquee or not, you can't come and start making demands that you play every game. It's ridiculous. Nobody will agree to that because we know what our schedule's like. Success brings games. It brings matches. A lot of these boys will go off on internationals. Some will come back with niggles. Some, gosh, we know how difficult it is to navigate repeated success with the kind of schedule that we have. That's why we have a big squad in the first place.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bobby. I appreciate that. Chelsea is a big team, a team that works always, a club that always works with a big squad, and that's why we're successful because no player is guaranteed to start every game. Even in some cases, no matter how you have to rest because you're, after all, a human or you burn out. Declad, I'll soon come to you. Did I say your name right, Declad?
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Okay, I'll soon get. Okay, you're welcome. Welcome to the panel. I appreciate you taking the time to join. I'm going to come to you soon. Max, Button Ballers, the question you heard the question, and do you have any cheaper alternative in mind? Question number one, and the follow-up question is: if eventually the club signs Erling Haaland, who makes way, and how do we solve up that problem?
Quite similar to what Bobby said, really. If he's our number one target, we shouldn't be settling for second best. There's two tiers. There's obviously him, Harry Kane, and Lukaku are the sort of top draw ones. And if we can't get one of those, then we just settle for what we have and try and go again for one of our big targets next season, rather than just accommodate somebody. If I was pushed to say someone, if it was a case of, look, you're not getting him, and the other two, you're not getting them next season either, and we need to push on, then I'll take a punt on Immobile of Lazio. He's been constantly.
How many goals this season?
I think he scored 26 in Italy.
26.
And he's in the last 3 or 4 years, he's been constantly scoring over 20 goals in the Italian league. So maybe somebody like him worth a punt. I was looking, and somebody was mentioning this Nigerian guy as an alternative. I can't say I've seen him play.
Paul Onuachu.
No, Terim Moffi. He plays for Lorient.
Really? How many goals this season for him?
He scored 14 in 32.
14 in 32. That's not bad.
He's 22 years old, and he's meant. So he's still quite young. So if you notice, apart from Haaland, who's a bit of a freak, most younger players, they sort of start to hit form at age of about 24, 25. But that's why everyone. I think that's why everyone wants Erling Haaland, because he's banging in the goals at 19, 20. He scored 41, I think, this year, didn't he? 41 in 41 games this season, and so there's a lot more to come from him. That's why it wouldn't be such a gamble. Second question that you asked about who
makes way, for Haaland.
It doesn't matter. It's Haaland at the end of the day. It's Haaland in there. So we already know with Tuchel is that he doesn't have a set team anyway. He does a lot of rotating within the side. And Bobby's quite rightly said there's going to be a lot of games. We've also got the World Club Cup to play this year. There's the FA Cup, there's the Champions League, so there's going to be enough games for people, enough games to go around for everybody in the squad. So he'll play up top. So it depends on who's going to play on the sides. So sometimes you'll have Werner off him. Sometimes you can play Pulisic off him. Mason Mount's probably a shoe-in on the other side. And Havertz as well. It depends on what sort of style of game you want to play, because Havertz can be adopted as a false nine as well in some games.
Yeah, like Tuchel has shown, it depends on the game you rotate.
Yeah, and he's flexible enough as well, Havertz, to be played on the sides as well. I think I was watching a bit of the German game, and he's actually operating on the right hand side today. He's scored a nice goal as well. So he's quite, and that's what we have. We've got players who are quite flexible tactically, who can play in various positions. So even if we don't go with sometimes we may not go with a 5 at the back. We may go with maybe a 4-2-3-1, where you can play maybe Havertz, Mount, and Werner / Pulisic, and you're making one of the defenders are making way in those games. Because if you see where we struggled against low block teams, sometimes we may not need 5 at the back when we're playing against these low block teams. We may be going like a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 formation. So it's not, we're looking at one of the attacking players who's going to miss out, but it could be a defender who misses out as well if he comes in. So
thank you very much, Max. Yes, thank you very much for taking the time to add to that discussion. I appreciate that. And Declan, my friend, how are you?
Good. Been enjoying the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to have you. Yes, and I believe you followed from the start, and you understand the argument is whether the club should consider cheaper alternatives rather than go for big names that probably be in the the price tags will probably be in the north of 100 million pounds, and also end up not performing as you've seen on the screen. We've had some names such as Alvaro Morata, Fernando Torres, Andrea Shashenko, who were all record signings for the club and didn't live up to expectations. So what do you think about that?
Well, that were complex cases. I can also bring up what about like a recent one like Mbappe. If we're going to compare Haaland and Mbappe, Mbappe cost a lot of money. Do you think he's going to be a failure at PSG, or he is?
Like Bobby said, there's no guarantee. Nothing is perfect. You just get them, and then it's like a packet. Should I say how do I say a package that you don't know what's inside? Gift. When you open it, whatever you say inside, you take it. So you can't tell. If you argue that, okay, somebody argued about when Ankit was still on the show, he said, okay, the case of Fernando Torres from Liverpool to Chelsea, he still didn't get it done. Although there are also arguments that he wasn't fully fit when Chelsea bought him. So what do you think? Do you think the club should go for cheaper alternatives or go for the big names? It's up to you, your perspective.
Yeah, you know how you gave the box example. When the box is bigger, it's something good, yeah? And that's what it comes to. You're paying for, when it comes to Haaland, for example, you're paying for what he's proven and his potential ceiling. What he's doing at his age is insane. This is the name it's being used is a generational talent. And that's why I don't want the B, C, D option striker. I don't want budget. We shouldn't be looking. We just won the Champions League, and what's happening, and what's a lot of Chelsea fans are failing to see. What's happening now at Chelsea is we got a backbone of players under 22 years and younger. Pulisic, Mount, Reece James, Havertz. When these guys are nowhere near their peak yet, in 3-4 years, right? We're going to be a force. Yes. That's why we need to go for Haaland. We need to throw everything at Haaland. We're building a team. We're building a dynasty. We're not building
for the future.
Yeah, we're building for a decade of success. If you guys remember what happened with Man United, that set them up for 2 decades. That backbone of young players set that team for success for 2 decades. And that's what we need. That's what's happening at Chelsea, and that's why we need to go for Haaland. That's what we need. No, we don't need big part players. That's what we're building, and that's why we need without the FFP in now too. We take advantage of this, right? That's why we got Havertz. Now we keep adding, and regardless of what, this is going to set us for. We might not win anything next year. Haaland might not. If Haaland comes, he might not do that well. You saw Havertz, Werner will pick up, but in the next 3 years and beyond, we're going to be a dominating force. And that's where the patience is needed, and that's how we should be looking at it, not for the short term with budget strikers. That's why I disagreed with that comment.
Great point. It's not it's a debate. We all have the right to express our opinions. It's democracy here. Everybody have their own opinion, and express your opinion. You're free to do so, and I'm glad you did find the time to join the panel. But the question is also, yes, you know how spoiled we Chelsea fans are. we ask for the player, and then when the club gets the player, and after 2 months, if the player performs, then it divides the fan base, and some will even, death threats in some cases, and abuses online and all like that. So that's also a problem. But hopefully, Haaland will do well if eventually the club secures his signature. But my question for you again, Declan, is what if? Because we don't know. We're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. Because they're saying, like you say in the chat, people are saying that his salary demands, his wage demands is the issue. So what if the deal falls through and the club end up not being able to secure his signature? Do you have any other, let me not call it cheaper alternative, but that seems like an issue for you. Do you have any other good player in mind that you think would do a good job or even do better than Haaland would do if eventually Chelsea secures his signature?
I think when it comes to the wage debate for Haaland, that's not going to be a problem. He's going to be on a good wage, right?
Okay.
And that's not going to be. You're going to find that that's not going to be an issue. Everyone's going to be a good wage. Mason Mount's going to be on a good wage. I'd rather keep Havertz till we get our man, right? He's got a release clause. There's going to be some other players. We need to go for these players. We don't. By the way, I think people mentioned Giroud did sign an extension. He might leave, but he's still going to stay. So that point was people were talking about Giroud leaving. But
yeah. So if Giroud leaves, what if Giroud leaves and we can't? Don't you think we need one more player? But if you think we need one more striker, if Giroud eventually leaves, who would you like the club to go for?
I'll stick with Havertz.
Just leave it the way it is, don't touch it until we get our man.
Yeah, because
okay. Go ahead, explain.
Because you kind of said it. As Chelsea players, fans, a lot of them are impatient. There's been so many names thrown around. It's crazy. We just won. The last time we won the Champions League, we signed Eden Hazard. Everyone was after Eden Hazard. Real Madrid was after Eden Hazard. Barcelona were after. He chose the Champions League winners.
Chelsea,
right? And yeah, back then. And now we are the Champions League winners again with all the players I said, all the young players, right? Chelsea looks like the best project in Europe. Should be the most attractive. When we're
undeniably so, yeah.
Yeah, we are downgrading ourselves by talking about some of these names, right? Of strikers. A lot of these players want to come to us, so we are the hot property, the biggest project. That's how I see it, and we got money to throw around, and we're building something great, and it's gonna not be next season. Maybe it'll take 3 seasons, but we're building, and what's got me exciting is that we're going to be a force, a dynasty.
True.
So Chelsea fans need to be patient, right? When these players start to hit their peak, we're going to be a force, and just like we're going to dominate the European scene for a long time, and that's what we want to see. But we have to build it now.
Honestly, Declan, you made great points, and I have to say, it looks like you and Bobby had a meeting before you joined the panel because you guys, I appreciate you, and it shows your input shows that you know the club quite well, you understand the game quite well, and I'm happy that you're able to join the panel. But the final question for you is this: if eventually we sign Haaland, who's going to make way? Because that's a problem also. You have one more player that you're going to try, that Thomas Tuchel is going to try to keep happy. So how do we solve that problem of ensuring that everybody is happy? And who do you think will make way if he starts?
In the assumption that we play the same system, right?
Yes.
Just like he has done this season, we'll rotate. I think the point was made up. We played 50 something games this season, and throw in the Club World Cup, and that we're going to play 60 games. So our rotation is a must. Between Havertz, Werner, and Mount, that would be the rotation. and I think Pulisic will throw in there too. I think the person that misses out the most is Ziyech, and I think that's why Ziyech's name has been thrown in the mix of transfers that he might leave. I don't think so, but I think he's going to cop the worst of it in terms of game time.
Very well explained. And I think if I'm right, I'm not sure if DJ Sav's comment has to do with Haaland. DJ Sav, is your comment, does it have to do with Haaland?
I think they're talking about Giroud.
Oh, Giroud, okay. Yeah, okay. So, but from what Bobby said, it looks like we're... Go ahead, Bobby, you wanted to say something?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Chelsea perspective.
Yes.
If Jadon Sancho goes to Man United, who will miss out?
Like I said, I understand your point. Yeah, it does not matter who misses out as long as they get the man and he starts for them. Yes.
At Chelsea,
and that's why we're here. Go ahead, Bobby.
At Chelsea, somewhere along the line, we got into this habit of caring about things that just don't matter. You know, the owner himself doesn't care about things like that. The only thing he cares about is success. That's why when his managers aren't performing, he gets rid of them and he gets another one. But we're here wondering, is Ziyech going to be off on the bench? Ziyech is employed by Chelsea Football Club. If we find he needs to be on the bench, he needs to be on the bench. We don't need to care about whether he wants to leave. Nobody else does. You look at Man City, Laporte, Nathan Ake, you name it. They're all in the stands. Who talks about them wanting to leave? It's only, look, this is mediocre. We've got to get out of this. Real Madrid.
Yes.
Who talks about, what's that? A Madrid boy. Oh gosh, the guy that's always
Asensio.
Not just Asensio, the other one. Oh gosh, my mind. Bobby, what's wrong with you?
What position?
Midfield. The bearded guy.
Oh, Isco.
All the players like that. Nobody talks about them. This is a Chelsea thing. We get ourselves so bogged down in these things that we've got to grow with the club. It's almost as if we can't believe our club is getting big. Chelsea is a big club now. We have to embrace it. Yeah. And if we are bringing in a marquee signing, we don't need to worry about who's going to miss out. With the players are in the squad and they will play for Chelsea. And if it so happens the club decides to get rid of one of them, then so be it. But
thank you very much, Bobby. That's why we're having this debate. It's not nobody's opinion. It's gonna change whatever the club wants to do. It's just us saying things from our respective perspective, and also talk about it as talk about the club we all love, and argue some of the things we see and we know. You wanted to say something, Max?
Yeah, and I said you guys also got to remember we finished fourth last season, and the only reason we finished fourth is because Tottenham won their last game of the season to get us into fourth. So okay, we won the Champions League, but let's not paper over the cracks. There were holes that needed to be filled in this side, and the only way these guys can prove that they're up for it is to help us to mount a title challenge.
Yes.
We haven't mounted a title challenge now for a few seasons since Conte left. So it goes to show we need those particular players. If they have to step up. If they do step up, the manager's not silly enough. They'll be playing in the team. If not, then they won't. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much, Max, for taking the time to add that to the discussion. And well at it, everybody, we've come to the end of the stream. And thank you very much to everybody that's in the chat. I appreciate you, DJ Foul, Diazo, Steve Chelsea, RCBN, who was on the panel before. Max, can you please plug in yourself, tell the viewers. I'll also add your information when the stream is ready. I'll also add the information so that people can go check out your content. Max is also a content creator. He has great content. He's knowledgeable. He knows the club very well. He knows the game very well. And I bet you want to go see his content. It's quite enjoyable. Max, please plug in yourself so that viewers can go check out your channel. I'll also do the same at the end of the stream when the stream is ready.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Chelsea Perspective. I am on Burton Borders, as you can see in the title below. That's my YouTube channel. And on Twitter, MaxiBCFC, if you want to follow me on Twitter as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. It's always good to have you. Your inputs are very well appreciated. I always
It's good to be here.
reach out to you to try and have you on the panel to tap into your knowledge of the club. I appreciate you coming. Thank you very much, Max.
Yeah,
and you,
thank
Clyde,
you.
how do we find you? How do the viewers find you? And are you on social media? Tell us about you.
Not a content creator, but I linger around through all the fan channels. So you might see me
I
pop
appreciate-
around and you see my
Yes, I
comments.
appreciate. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming around, and I learned. And to be honest, I learned some things from what you said, because what you said, I can say, is nearly identical to what Bobby was arguing and what he's argued even weeks before now. And I appreciate that. I'd really like you to please subscribe and click on the notification button, because I'd love to have you on the panel again. Your inputs were great, and I appreciate that. And I hope to see you again on the stream. Bobby, anything from you to the viewers?
No, it's all good. You know, I'm like Declared. I just go around supporting you guys, giving my opinion. I'm just a passionate Chelsea fan, no more, no less. I don't have a platform. I support platforms. And as long as, you know, it's all Chelsea, you can't do any wrong by me.
Thank you very much. Special thanks to everybody. Taron, who unfortunately something happened and he had to leave the panel, and also ACBN of Chelsea Fans TV. You can go check out his channel. Taron himself has a podcast, and I will put the information at the end of the stream so you can go check it out. He also knows the club very well. He knows the game very well, and he has great content on Spotify where you can find his podcast. And also, if you are in the chat, please, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And don't forget to click on the notification button so that you will be notified whenever we're streaming or whenever I put out the new content. Again, don't forget to check out Button Ballers. Great content and great individual also. Thank you, everyone, for finding the time to attend. I appreciate you all, and I hope to see you guys again.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks again. Cheers.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.